Hey, today I'm going to show you how to make a fun quick card using the Today set. And this piece of cardstock is 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and I've gone ahead and divided it up by 3 so I can have good stamping, good even stamping. So I'm taking 2 of the hand-drawn hearts on the Today set, and we're going ahead and stamp those on this lovely card front. And I'm taking the Distress inks from Ranger using Mermaid Lagoon, picked raspberry, and seedless preserves. So I'm going to speed this up for you because it's rather boring. Don't want to see me stamping. You all know how to do that by now, I am sure. So yeah, I just took these stamps and went down those colors and tried to evenly dispense them or stamp them on the card so it's not too uniform. Who likes uniform? I don't. I'm boring, or maybe not boring. Try not to be boring. Alright, so after I have stamped all these stamps, I'm going to take my eraser and erase those lines. I don't know about you, but I have one of those like clicker erasers that are fantastic. I love them mainly because I don't have to worry about my pencil eraser being low. I can just whip this out and erase the lines and erase whatever I need to erase without issues. They're super cheap. You can get them anywhere, Walmart, any, craft store, art store, no big deal. So I erased those lines, and now I'm going to put on these 2 pieces of cardstock that measure 1 inch by 5 inch, and the color is called Velvet by Basil, and it does have a textured side, but I wanted to keep the smooth side up, and so I took my Crafty Foam tape from Scrapbook Adhesives by 3L. It's black. They have black and white, and I tend to use black with darker colors just because it's easier to not notice. Does that make sense? So I put that on the card front. I did that on both sides so we can have obviously even distribution. And the really thing I like about this Crafty Foam tape, it's super, super strong. And so you have to be careful where you put it on your project because it will rip and tear if you don't place it well and you want to try to remove it. It's rather difficult. So they also have good smaller, like they have the 3D foam squares, white and black, and they also have a thin, so you can put smaller, not so much of a 3D effect. You can have small. And so we'll put this strip on and we will continue with our card as soon as I get that done. Now, one thing I want to mention is that when you are putting this stuff on your project, make sure you know how close to the edge you want it, because again, if you don't want it to see through, you have to make sure that you put it in the right place. Obviously, that makes total sense. I know it does. At least it does to me. Alright, so we're putting this on, and then we're going to go ahead and get ready for our sentiment. Obviously, I found something that needed to be erased. I fixed that, and it fixed this lovely strip to the card. So I took another sentiment from the Today set. It's called, well, they're all words, and it says "You are amazing." And we took a 1 inch by 4.25 inch black strip because I wanted to hang over the card front just a little bit. So if you're like me, I have a bad memory, and so I have to set my embossing bag right next to my powder bag, right next to my embossing or my Versamark ink, or I will literally forget and my embossing becomes a huge mess. But if you don't have an embossing bag or embossing powder, please use it or static bag, because it's so helpful in your embossing. It helps keep the extra embossing paste away from what you want really to be seen. So this is just Hero Arts white embossing powder. And I just flick off the excess, and then sometimes if I'm really particular, I'll take a paintbrush, and right now you'll see I'm picking up this kind of a rounded brush. It's actually a nail polish remover brush that I use for my manicures sometimes, and it actually works very well. So but be sure to clean off your brush when you're finished, because it will gunk up your brush, and you don't want that either, when you're actually using for a paintbrush or whatever. So now we're going to melt this embossing powder with a heat gun, and I had the Milwaukee gun, which is fantastic. I would suggest spending the money and invest in the gun because it is the best I've ever used. So just a tip for you. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some more crafty foam tape on the back of this, and make sure you also, before, always measure twice, stick once is what I do. But right now we're going to take some Divine Twine by Whisker Graphics, and this is the pink solid. And what I did, I had soaked it in Stiffy, which is a fabric stiffener, and I laid it out flat and let it dry. And then when it was dried, I picked it up and I was able to manipulate it how I wanted it to. So I put it in those circles. And so I'm going to be taking my multimedia matte by Ranger, and it's that liquid adhesive, and it works very well. I really like it because it dries pretty much clear but not shiny. Does that make sense? And it sticks. This is really strong adhesive. I really like it. So we're going to put that down with the multimedia, and then we will cover the Divine Twine with the sentiment that I had stamped and embossed, and you'll see in a second as I do this. Now, I've had to remove twine occasionally, so be careful. Again, measure twice, put down once, always the best way to do it. So do as I say, not as I do, because sometimes I totally mess that up, and I'm totally human, and you'll see. So I put these on more crafty foam tape on the back of this sentiment, and we'll get that on there. I believe you'll see here that I put it too close to the edge, because I forgot I wanted to overlap the edge. So I very, very carefully remove the crafty foam tape and move it over, and we're safe. See? Do as I say, not as I do. So, measure twice, cut once, as my husband says. He, we had it in our old house, our rental now. He was putting in can lights because he's an electrician, and he wanted more lights in our house, which is great. And there's over-counter lights that he put in, and he measured and measured twice. I mean, he always tells me measure twice, cut once. Well, he measured and measured, and then he cut, and it was off. I was giving him a bad time. All right, so we are going to take this card front. Now, you see the back of that card front? I do not waste anything. If it can be used, I will use it. So I had stamped earlier, and I had gone in the wrong color scheme that I wanted, so I just flipped it over and used it because I don't waste anything. So I took my Easy Permanent Dots from Scrapbook Adhesives by 3L, and I put adhesive liberally on that card front because I want my cards to go through the mail. I want them to be handled, and I want them to last. So I stuck that to a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card, and now we're going to be putting on sequins. Now, sometimes if my craft sheet is not down on my work surface, I will just go ahead and put that multimedia on a stamping block and take my sequins and obviously put them on that way. It doesn't hurt your stamp block. Just wipe it off with a baby wipe or clean it, wash it, whatever you will, and it works just fine. And it's super easy to get to, especially when I don't take the time to get my craft sheet out. So I'm just adhering these sequins on randomly, using my EK Success tweezers, which are the best. I've had other tweezers, and they just don't even measure up at all. I really feel that if you're going to do this lovely hobby craft that we're doing, invest in the tools. It's worth it. They'll last you a long time, and you'll get a lot of wear out of them. So here's the card. It's super simple. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, please comment in the comments. Like us, subscribe to our channel, and enjoy your day.